Doreen Lawrence introduced you yesterday at conference. She has, been part of the petition to say that Cressida Dick's time shouldn't be extended by another 2 years in charge of the Met Police. Is Cressida Dick fit to continue? Would you want her out now too?
No, Cressida Dick is fit to continue. I've worked with Cressida over many years in relation to some very serious operations when I was Director of Public Prosecutions, and I was pleased that her contract was extended, and I support her.
When this happened, I believe that the Director of Public Prosecutions, i.e. the head of the Crown Prosecution Service, Britain's top lawyer, was Ken MacDonald. His successor was none other than Kier Starmer. As the police account of the Menezes murder, execution, whatever you want to call it, killing, as that account fell apart, as a jury found that it wasn't a lawful killing, this then went back to the Director of Public Prosecutions, who at this time was Kier Starmer. What did he do with this information, which you've just recounted now, and the fact that a jury of regular people determined it wasn't a lawful killing? What did he do? Nothing. He backed the police, despite clear evidence of, I think wrongdoing. I think that's quite obvious, and it should have been gotten to the bottom of, and it wasn't. Why? Because we don't have proper scrutiny and accountability in this country for many, many parts of public life, particularly with the police. I mean, it's just astonishing, the extent to which there's no independent oversight of how they behave. And this was just a very, very glaring example of it. And that man who chose not to go any further, who was Director of Public Prosecution, is now the leader of the Labour Party, which really just goes to show the insulated nature of the British elite, the British establishment. Now, she was, the child of Oxford academics. She was a high flyer in the Met. She was going places. She obviously made the right connections. And Michael, killing some Brazilian immigrant, or she didn't kill him personally. She was the gold commander on the day. Clearly, things went wrong under her watch. That isn't good enough to stop her failing upwards. We see that time after time in British life. So that would be my two-word answer: British establishment.
It seems to have been messages that were sent between officers at Charing Cross police station that was the final straw for Sadiq Khan. Is that because it was impossible to justify, and it was so many people, though? I mean, so many of these things are completely impossible to justify. The timing of this is very strange, isn't it? Because it does seem to me like there have been so many failures on the part of Cressida Dick, which should have warranted a resignation, but it's only now that Sadiq Khan has finally changed his mind. I mean, I assume he also spoke to Kier Starmer. I doubt this came as a surprise to the Labour leader, but we saw very recently, as we've just showed you, after the Sarah Everard case, after a serving Met police officer had kidnapped, raped and murdered a young woman, and then the police had, treated the people at her vigil like criminals. After that, both parties were backing this person. After that, Sadiq Khan was backing this person. But it's now because of these WhatsApp messages which were released between police officers at Charing Cross station that she's gone. How do you assess why this change has happened right now instead of a year ago?
I think the Sarah Everard stuff was explicitly political. And I think there's a worry by politicians, obviously wrongly, that they don't want to be seen as getting involved in traducing or criticising the police in a context of political protest. I don't agree with that, but it's explicable. I think what you saw with those leaked messages, Michael, and with the Koshka Duff story was effectively a culture of impunity, aggression, misogyny, racism, bigotry, which is the everyday reality of the Metropolitan Police Service. It's not a big set piece of policing of a particular protest. It's not a one-off. You can't put it down to a few bad apples. It's the whole barrel, really, if we're being quite honest. And also, Michael, I think you have to also return to a point, which is, look, these are the scandals we know about when it comes to Cressida Dick, when it comes to the London Metropolitan Police Service. And you would be naive to not think that politicians, particularly the Mayor of London, don't know about others, or at least things in process, or at least rumours or speculation. Now, rumours and speculation, when you're talking about somebody potentially losing their job, you can't take them as seriously as facts. Of course you can't. But when you have a deluge of recorded, documented evidence of somebody being this bad at their job, and then I think you probably do have a number of rumours swirling around about very similar cases, then of course you take them seriously. And I think that's a basic act of political self-preservation on the part of Sadiq Khan. He had to tell her that she had to go. I think from the sounds of it, he asked her for an action plan. I mean, you're going to know the chronology of this better than I do. From what I've read, he wanted an action plan. What are you going to do about this? This is clearly unacceptable. And she didn't really think she had to produce anything. This is clearly unacceptable. How do we move away from this reality of the London Metropolitan Police Service? Well, I don't know. Maybe I'll, write something on the back of a napkin. That's clearly not good enough. The fact he asked her to go, and then she did, like you say, in such a quick turnaround, you have to suspect there were other people in her ear. Has to be. She wouldn't have gone purely on the back of the London mayor saying that if she knew that the Home Secretary and the Prime Minister and so on had her back. I find that very hard to believe. And I think, Michael, it's one of those cases which, calls for Michael Walker at his most forensic. I'm sure you'll get to the bottom of it.
I think in terms of her resigning, it, as far as the reports I've read have suggested,